So we all met at the Capitol one day, with the governor, and it was just like 5 of us around the table, and we said, hey, we're going to build a fire truck for the New York City Fire Department. And I said, okay. I said, I want to do it. And they said, well, why don't we try to start a campaign to raise money? I said, that's fine. And we came up with a campaign called Bucks for Trucks. And my commitment there was, I was going to build a truck regardless of,
right.
Whatever money we raised. So as the campaign went on, it just got to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Believe it or not, there were school kids, all around the state giving pennies and nickels. And so the goal was only to raise, a couple $100,000. So we ended up raising $1.2 million.
Oh, my goodness.
For the campaign.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. We're here in the Propel Production Podcast Studio in Baton Rouge, and our guest today is Mr. Chris Ferrara, founder of Ferrara Fire Apparatus and CEO and founder of U.S. Fire Pump. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Glad to be here with you.
Look, it's a great honor to have a business legend like you on the show, and I appreciate you coming in. I thought that we would start with what you're doing now, which is U.S. Fire Pump. I think when most people hear the Ferrara name, they think of your first business.
Fire trucks, correct.
Yeah, fire trucks, and seeing your facility on off of I-12 and reading stories and seeing media about the fire truck business. But I thought we would touch on what you're doing now, and then we can backtrack into the whole story. So tell us what U.S. Fire Pump is and what you guys do.
Well, U.S. Fire Pump is really an interesting business. We started that some years ago after I left Ferrara Fire Apparatus. Our goal was to actually, or my goal was actually to develop a large industrial fire pump. Industrial business has always been very interesting to me. And we sold a lot of industrial fire trucks all around the world to a lot of different companies. So it was really limited to the capacity of the pump. The biggest pump out there at that particular time was about 3,500 GPM, gallons per minute, and that really, in my mind, wasn't really large enough to handle some of these major fires around the world. So, from a background of firefighting and manufacturing, just set out to design a fire pump that would actually double the amount of what was currently out there on the market today, or back then. So today, our largest fire pump that we produce today is in excess of 6,000 gallons a minute. So when we first introduced that back around 2015 or so, 16, it was considered the largest industrial fire pump anywhere in the world, and we won the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest flow. So it was certified My goodness. So it was something very unique that no one else actually thought about, or actually thought about a need for something of that magnitude. But
I mean, almost doubling.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a fire truck, typically a fire truck today has an average pump size of about 1,500 gallons a minute for a municipal pumper. So, looking at it from an industrial standpoint, actually producing over 6,000 gallons a minute, and that's from drafts. So the truck actually drafts water from a pond or river or whatever. So from a pressurized source, this particular pump will do in excess of 10,000 gallons a minute. Wow. So, I set a mark in the industry that a lot of people took note and was very interested in the product all around the world.
So when you started that, developing that product, was the goal to just sell that product, or was the goal to back that with service?
No, the goal was actually to sell that product to different fire truck manufacturers. However, I entered into a contract with my existing company to sell that for exclusively for several years, and then, but in addition to that, one thing led to another. We actually took that same configuration of a pump that would be mounted on a fire truck or running gear of a fire truck. We actually modify the gear case on it to actually adapt to what we call a skid-mounted industrial fire pump, where we take a Caterpillar big diesel drive motor, Cummins, or whatever the customer is looking for, and adapt that and mount it directly to the engine. So it becomes a large portable industrial firefighting pump. So, one thing led to another. Then we started building big pumps, and we built big monitors, and, then we got into other different specialty items. So I've always been known as one of the leading innovators of the fire service, since I started. And I always wanted to really push the envelope of building new technology, new ways of firefighting, and certainly I've hopefully accomplished that over the years. And with the latest business, U.S. Fire Pump, it has brought us to a level that we're known worldwide now, just like the fire truck division.
So at what point so the common theme throughout your career story is relentless pursuit of innovation.
Correct.
And in everything that you did, right? And whether it's manufacturing or services or technology, at what point did the manufacturing of products for U.S. Fire Pump turn into, hey, someone wants you to go put out a fire?
Yeah, that came when a good friend of mine by the name of Dwight Williams, who actually had an industrial firefighting company, actually sold his business some 12, 13 years ago, and we've always been friends. We actually fought the same fire in 1989 at the Exxon facility in Baton Rouge. So it was just kind of a leapfrog, so to speak, into the business. But it was just a kind of combination of expanding the business from manufacturing actually to firefighting. So believe it or not, today the industrial firefighting business is probably about 95% of our business.
Oh my goodness!
Compared to manufacturing. So we manufacture still a lot of products for fire trucks and big fire pumps, but our forte is industrial firefighting all around the world.
That is fascinating. So you've got some good stories. I know I've read about a few of them, but take us through what it looks like. I mean, this sounds like Red Adair stuff that where you're fighting these industrial type fires, maybe not oil field fires, but what does that look like from the time you get a call to?
For instance, we look back. One of the largest fires in Texas history was the Deer Park fire back in March of 2019. We actually had approximately 13 storage tanks on fire, averaging about 150 feet, 125 feet in diameter. They were all in a cluster together. Not
far off I-10.
Not far off.
I drove by it twice when it was burning.
Right. So, the fire actually started on a Sunday morning, and they actually tried to extinguish the fire themselves, and they actually spent about a day and a half, 2 days actually trying to put this fire out, and it kept growing. So, the smoke and the fire actually got so bad. The smoke was going to downtown Houston, so really they had to do something. So we actually got a call about 1 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday evening, I think it was. It was late, and typically on a big fire of this nature, we actually sign a contract with a particular company to come out before we mobilize and have to spend a lot of money putting all the assets together to move the equipment. So we signed a contract middle of the night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we actually geared up and was actually there at about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. We actually drove all night from Baton Rouge into Deer Park. And when we arrive, it's just a massive fire. I mean, it's fire everywhere. It's fire, shooting 200 feet in the air, and it's just a large industrial big fire.
So do you have equipment like on the ready, like?
Yeah, today, we have the largest response equipment anywhere in the world. I keep saying anywhere in the world. We have a magnitude that we can handle a multitude of incidents at one time. So, just back with the hurricane situation that happened some 5 weeks ago, we were on 6 different incidents. Not only from dewatering, because we've developed some large submersible fire pumps where we can actually use them as dewatering in addition to firefighting. So, we were pumping. We were pumping at one facility somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 million gallons of water a day.
Oh my goodness.
40 million gallons. So, we have the equipment, the manpower to do these large scale events that no one else has. So I took a chance and invested a tremendous amount of money into all this equipment, because again, this equipment is not used every day. However, right. When you need it, and we have the equipment located throughout the Gulf Coast area. So I have another large office that we're fixing to open up and expand right outside of Houston in Baytown. We have a current office in Vidor, Texas, on Interstate 10, but we strategically place this equipment around that we can gain access to in a moment's notice. And all the equipment is first class, new, ready to be used, and it has to perform to the utmost performance when we need the equipment. So
when you get to Deer Park, you got 12 tanks burning, huge fire. I mean, how many guys are on your team, and what is that planning like? You got to, I imagine on the way there, you're getting info, like how you're going to attack it from when you hit the job.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. We started looking at the fire before we even was contracted. And all these major fires, I mean, you're not going to hook up to a fire hydrant, so you have to look for alternative water sources. So, geographically, we're looking at maps of where's the closest water source that we can draft from. So a strategic plan is put in place of where's the wind blowing, how can we set up, where's the water, how much hose we're going to have to lay. So it's not uncommon, and it blows people's mind when I tell the story. It's not uncommon for us to lay 6 miles of 12-inch hose on the ground.
Oh my goodness.
So you can imagine a 12-inch round circumference so it's laying a big water main 6 miles down the road. So we keep 6 miles of 12-inch hose. We have special machines that we designed to actually lay the hose and pick up the hose, because you can't, once it's laid, you can't pick it up or you can't move it, or even deploying it, you can't lay it by hand. So it's got to be laid by machinery and people running machinery to. So it's a pretty simple analogy though when you step back in time and look at the way we tackle these large scale events. Large fires take large amounts of water and foam and equipment
and money,
and a lot of money to extinguish these fires. So at the Deer Park fire, the analogy was that we needed somewhere around 30,000 gallons a minute to extinguish this fire. So 30,000 gallons a minute of water foam solution. So along the way, not only have we developed large fire pumps, but we also have developed a unique foam concentrate to be very effective in extinguishing these large industrial fires. So the product that we produce through another foam manufacturer. It's our kind of ingredients designed to make it work and to be very effective of how it works. So,
man, that sounds so exciting. So imagine in that 6 miles there are a series of booster pumps along the way.
Yeah, we were actually the first layout. We actually started taking water from the city water line. I just so happened to be walking by one of the city inspectors, and he said, "Well, we have a 24-inch water main right here in front." I said, "Well, how can I tap into it?" And we went over there and looked at it, and I actually got him to put us a big tap there that we could come out of the ground with a 24-inch main, feeding two 12-inch lines. So wow. we lucked out on getting water very fast out of that main line. However, we also laid lines from the Houston Ship Channel, which was about 2.5 miles away. So not only were we drafting water out of the ship channel with these large submersible pumps, but as you can appreciate, once you take water out with submersible pumps, you have to boost pressure along the way. So these big pumps come into play that were boosting pressure along the way. So, a lot of the major monitors that we use, that we develop, we can actually flow, on average about 9,000 gallons a minute through monitors, large water devices that, as we call monitors, that actually flow water, and we can actually, throw water, as far as, 580 feet.
Wow. How long did it take y'all to put that fire up?
Believe it or not, after we were set up, so we got there, like I said, about 6 o'clock in the morning. Once we established water source, and once we started laying all the hoses out and all the equipment and moving all the manpower around, once we actually started operation, which was after lunch, we had the fire extinguished in less than 10 hours.
That's amazing. So that was in, I believe, March.
That was in March of 2019.
Yeah. And I read where in October you received the Industrial Fire World Magazine's Red Adair Award.
Yeah, that was really a great honor. As the name is well known around the world. Red Adair was a special person that put out a large industrial oil well fires, and John Wayne movie and Hellfighters, and he was just a very unique person, and not only that, an entrepreneur, so to speak, and very aggressive in firefighting.
But it's something about those those firefighters where they're doing it seems they're doing the impossible. I mean, when you look at the size of the fire that you put out in Deer Park, I mean, it seems insurmountable, and yet it's that wildcatter kind of spirit that's up for the challenge and gets it done. I mean, that inspires people, man. It's exciting.
I mean, when typically people are running from a fire, we're going into the fire. That's what firefighters do. I mean, there's a lot of great firefighters all around the world, but with industrial firefighting, I mean, we're up close and personal. Believe me, we're close, and you got to be close, and you got to read what's going on with the fire, what's it doing, what's burning, what chemicals are burning, which way the wind's. But I mean, there's so many different facets of actually how to be successful in putting these fires out. We're just not setting up a monitor and just throwing water. It's very strategic attack of actually putting these things out.
I read another one. You may have one that's more meaningful to you than this, but this was about this cargo ship that had, it was filled with like 4,000 cars, and there was a fire, but there was personnel trapped in the.
Right. We were. That was the Golden Ray that was in the Georgia Sound that actually turned over. It actually had 4,000 cars on it. It was on fire, so we were contracted through a salvage company to come out to help extinguish that fire. And after we got there, after the fire was extinguished, a lot of my guys went in to actually rescue the last 2 crew members, whereby we actually helped drill a hole back by the prop area of the vessel and gain entry to crawl over the engine and actually go into the engine room and actually go into the mechanics room where the last gentleman was. So I mean, They had the rappel down, and it was very unique rescue. I was really proud of my guys who actually went there. If you look on some of the different scenes, you can see our guys standing on the vessel, and we were there, making it happen. So.
That's fascinating. So, I'm thinking back when you were 20, you were a pipe fitter, a volunteer firefighter. Did you ever envision that you would someday be putting out fires to the magnitude that you are now?
No, I had no idea. As a story goes, and I've often told the story many times to a lot of people, just born and raised in Baton Rouge, went to Redemptorist High School, graduated in 1976. Me and my wife got married in 78 and moved out to Central, north of Baton Rouge. And
married young.
Yeah, and at that particular time, Central was a growing community and didn't have any tax base. Only, way to raise funds for that particular fire department was door-to-door donation, chicken dinners. So I was recruited by a couple of guys to join the local fire department then. So I said, well,
which is all volunteer, right?
It was all volunteer at the time. We had no paid firemen, but after finishing school, I was going through an apprenticeship program of pipe fitter, local Union 198. So following my dad's footsteps, I was working out at Exxon when I was going to school at night to be a welder, pipe fitter welder. So joined the local volunteer fire department after I got married. We moved out to Central. In that time, like I said, only funds was door-to-door donations and chicken.
There were no
dinners.
Public funds available.
Funds whatsoever. So we needed a new fire truck. So me and a couple of guys got together on weekends and night and actually designed and built a fire truck.
So what y'all needed, from what I understand, was like a water tanker,
a fire truck, tanker truck.
That actually carried the water to a fire, because you may have been more rural. Is that right?
Right. In those particular days, there wasn't hardly any fire hydrants around. So, in rural America, you have to carry your water with you or have a drafting source to supply the water to fire trucks.
So did the tanker truck that you built, which you cobbled together with your other volunteer guys there, did it have a pump on it?
Yeah, it did.
Okay,
so it was really considered a pumper tanker. So not only did it have a pump, it could actually pump water from the tank.
So you had some mechanics going on.
Oh, absolutely. So it was very interesting. We worked really hard to make that truck work and saved a lot of money for the fire department at that particular time.
Did y'all paint it up pretty and everything?
Oh yeah, it was painted red, and it turned out to be a nice truck and served the fire department for many years. So
that's kind of where the bug bit you, right?
Right. I've always worked all my life. Believe it or not, I worked in the younger days.
The fire truck bug, right?
Yeah, the fire truck bug. But I've always worked all my life. Even going through high school, I worked at the corner store and became manager, butcher there. The store was named Baton Rouge Meat Supply in the early days, and so I've always had a passion of owning my own business or working to have a business of my own. So after building this fire truck, with my wife working, I did some research and had an opportunity to see there wasn't a lot of different salesmen or different fire truck salesmen around. So believe it or not, I just kind of jumped in with both feet. And actually started selling other brands of fire trucks and fire equipment, out of the trunk of the car, so to speak. So
you just became a rep for some fire truck companies?
Yeah, for a rep for a fire truck company, and was doing it, like I said, out of the trunk of the car, and then, it moved from the trunk of the car to an office in the house, and then out of the house, I built a little barn in the back of the house, and that became my office, and then expanded out of that. And then at that time, I had another opportunity to hire somebody out of Eunice, Louisiana, that was getting out of the fire truck business. So I opened up my first office in Eunice, Louisiana, as a repair shop, and we were repairing and building small trucks. And then I said to myself, well, shoot, I can do anything those guys of manufacturing fire trucks. So actually designed a few fire trucks with some people that I employed, and one thing led to another. I started building one, and then it was 2, 3, 4. So we had an opportunity. I had an opportunity to get another office right off of Mammoth Drive to a small building that we started building more fire trucks and just kind of expanded, and everything went very well. But in addition to that, when you look at starting the business, as you can appreciate, and doing it all yourself, I actually started this business with $1,800, and I had some help along the way that people believed in me. I had a banker by the name of Martha Bickham that was with Fidelity National Bank in those days, in the early days, right off of Hooper Road. Got a little loan. I think it was $10,000 or $12,000 at the time, and then we kind of outgrew that. We were just leveraged. We couldn't borrow anymore. I couldn't borrow any more money, so swapped banks to another bank called Guarantee Bank. That another gentleman kind of took me in under his wings and started doing business with that particular bank. But, I couldn't borrow any more money. I mean, we needed a lot of money to start building fire trucks with the machinery and everything else. And back in those days, it was a lot of relationship, loan officers and opportunities. And so he called me one day, and I went to his office, and the gentleman's name was Dougley McElvin, an old-time banker from Baton Rouge, worked at Fidelity and went to Guarantee Bank at that particular time. He said, "Chris, the only way you're going to get more money is we got to do an SBA loan." I said, what in the hell is an SBA loan? He says, "Well, let me tell you what it's about." He says, "The SBA will guarantee the bank that, we could loan you money." I said, "Well, let's do it." I think at that particular time, I think we were looking for, $400,000, $500,000 to get more capital to expand the business. So he filled out the application form. He said, "Well, Chris, next week we're going to drive down to New Orleans to the SBA officer. I know the SBA officer, loan officer there, who reviews application." I said, "Well, that's great." So we got in his car the next week, believe it or not, and drove down to New Orleans to the SBA office and sat down with the banker, and Dudley knew the banker, and we got the loan, and that's how really the business, expanded, that somebody believed in me, and we had a lot of opportunities, and again, one thing led to another.
Let me interrupt you here for a second, because banking's a common thread in all our entrepreneur stories. It's such a huge part of whether business makes it or not, and our podcast is sponsored by B1 Bank, and we appreciate that. Let me sneak in a word from our sponsor, and we'll pick that story up on the other side. We would like to thank MBD Automation for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. MBD Automation is a mechanical install contractor with a program-centric focus. So what do these guys do? They install conveyor systems, VRCs, platforms, singulators, sorters, and all sorts of other types of automated equipment. Who do they work for? They work for systems integrators, manufacturers, and end users in fulfillment centers, airports, mail processing facilities, and projects in the defense industry. MBD Automation works for numerous Fortune 500 companies across the United States and has a list of international clients that they perform work for in the U.S. as well. If MBD Automation can help you on your next project, you can find them online at mbdautomation.com. And we are back with Chris Ferrara with U.S. Fire Pump. So, Chris, you get your first big loan lined up, and now you're off to the races, right? I mean, you're on Mammoth Drive. You're in like a 15,000 square foot facility, but you're building fire trucks.
We built a lot of fire trucks, so we kind of outgrew that facility, and then, we rented another building across the street and expanded the building. And if you ever passed down Mammoth Drive in the early days, you would see fire trucks line up and down the street. So we just kind of outgrew that facility. I mean, we were doing 20 or 30, 40, trucks a year, maybe even a few more. But it was just too small. We had an opportunity again that Dougley McKelvin came to me one day and says, because he knew I was looking to expand the facility again, and he said the bank, he knew of a bank that had a piece of property in Holden, Louisiana, right there on Interstate 10, and it was in foreclosure, and we could get a deal on it if we wanted it. So naturally, we looked around, the different parishes, and the greatest opportunity for us for manufacturing, and to step back in time, Louisiana's not known to be a manufacturing state. So
Right.
It's a petrochemical industry and retail. So from manufacturing, in my opinion, it's just not that many manufacturers here in the state, or we don't manufacture, a lot of, goods and besides the oil industry and the gas industry and some other things. But we had to look at resources where we could get manpower and quality manpower. And the only logical way was actually to go east. We couldn't go really west because of spillway and really not adapting and gathering a lot of personnel. So I did a lot of research, and we had the opportunity, like I said, to buy this piece of property, believe it or not, for like $900 an acre.
Oh my goodness!
It was 52 acres, and
You got to be kidding me.
no. So we closed on that property, and actually, I designed a new building, which was the first original building, was about 110,000 square feet, and we had an opportunity to employ a lot of workers from the kind of the farm country at that time, the Greensburg, Amy's,
Yeah.
Hammond, Tickfaw area. So, we gathered a lot of great people to make it happen, and so we moved out there in 1994.
So look, you had it was great value on the land, obviously, but you had the visibility from the interstate,
Right.
right? And that was huge.
Right, and I wanted visibility. So as you can appreciate, there was at that particular time, I think there was 30 or 40,000 cars a day that was passing down the interstate, and that would be just great advertising for us, not only from fire truck sales, but also trying to recruit employees for the business. So
Now, at that time, you're building fire trucks on a private label chassis. Someone's making
right, the running gear in the cab. So
the
basically,
cab,
we would
chassis.
buy Ford cab chassis, Internationals, Freightliners, and other custom fire truck manufactured chassis, such as Spartan Motors or HME Motors, and we would actually develop and build the back end of the product to complete it as a fire truck. So, that facility led us to a lot of other things that we'll talk about in a minute. But when we first moved in there in 1994, I think we were producing, probably about 10 trucks a month, at that facility, which was about 110,000 square foot. And then, as always, looking at new ways, new ideas, and new ways to expand the business. And I said, well, shoot, I can build our own custom chassis. So in 1998, we unveiled our own custom chassis, fire chassis, that was very well accepted with fire departments all across the country.
But I mean, to get when I think of what it takes to manufacture your own chassis and get it approved by the federal government, I mean, that sounds like a daunting task.
It is a very daunting task to meet all the federal motor vehicle standards and all the requirements and the VIN numbers, and it's just a long, tedious process. But not only that, as you can appreciate, from an engineering standpoint, to engineer something from scratch, it's a big task, a monumental task.
But as I understand, you were really not trying to duplicate what you had been buying from other chassis builders, but you were actually engineering something different.
Always something different, always innovative. So our brand that we first came out with was I was known in the industry of building the heaviest made product in the industry. So everything I built, it was always over-engineered. So the body was over-engineered, for safety reasons, for durability reasons. So, and it's the same way that led into the custom chassis. Our cab chassis was built out of 3/16 aluminum, marine grade aluminum, compared to some of the other chassis that was like 1/8 in thickness. So everything that we did was safety oriented, heaviness, longevity, and that's what the business was known about.
And of course, with that comes cost. And so when you're in, I suspect, the municipal bid market for the local municipal fire company that needs to put out a request for bid, I imagine that becomes a bit of a challenge. So I guess you begin to select your markets of who wants to pay for quality.
Absolutely, and in turn, we always sold on quality of the product. We were never sometimes the cheapest price out there. We were just known as just a quality built product, right. and a lot of people took note of that, and we developed our own specifications and our own computer software of all the different options. So some people think fire trucks are all made identical, but as I'm sitting here today, there's really no two fire trucks alike, so to speak. They may look alike, yeah, but different pump size, different engine size, different compartments, different compartment configurations. So, for instance, what the city of Baton Rouge buys is completely different than what the city of New Orleans buys. So,
and look, you can tell that driving 70 miles an hour down the interstate. Yeah. I mean, I've probably passed by your place 1,000 times,
right,
and seen hundreds and hundreds of fire trucks, and they're all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, I used to relate it to actually building a custom home for somebody every day. So, yeah. At one time, we were producing a fire truck every day. So we were up to about 580 employees and producing about 360 trucks a year. So it was really mind-boggling. We were running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to do that, and very successful with that.
And at the same time, you're expanding. I mean, it's not just fire trucks. In fact, I read something here that just put it very succinctly. And just for my readers' benefit, I wanted to just read this paragraph I copied from an article. And it says, Ferrara Fire Apparatus is a Holden, Louisiana-based private company that custom builds firefighting equipment, including pumpers, tankers, brush trucks for off-road needs, rescue vehicles, and industrial firefighting trucks. Ferrara also manufactures a strong-arm vehicle, a fire truck equipped with an aerial boom and a nozzle capable of piercing a 6-inch reinforced concrete wall to improve ventilation or even create entryways. Special units made by Ferrara include hazmat units, mobile command vehicles, emergency response trailers, bomb squad units, and decontamination vehicles.
Right. So it was endless. So it's actually designing a new product every day. So the R&D division was big, and we had a lot of talented people to make it happen. And if you look back today, I mean, I have fire trucks all around the world. From surely a lot of cities in Louisiana, but Houston, San Francisco, New York City. Through Canada, Mexico was a big account for us with Pemex, one of Mexico's largest oil company out that way, into China, Dubai, Philippines. So we, Bahamas. So I had a lot of in doing so and selling and building a lot of these fire trucks for a lot of different countries. You met a lot of interesting people along the way.
I remember Buddy Romer, who founded B1 Bank, and I think I remember him saying that he had gone to China with you, or was going to China on your behalf, or to sell fire trucks.
Right. So after Buddy finished his term as governor, I knew of him, he knew of me, and then one day we got together, and he had another partner by the name of Eugene G, who actually was from China, and I don't know if you met Eugene.
I think I did actually meet him one time.
So him and his nickname was G, had a great relationship, and we had an opportunity to sit down with Buddy and say, okay, we want to expand our business in the China market. Would you go over on our behalf? And surely him and G did, and they went to, all the major cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Chengdu, Shenzhen, and had an opportunity to meet with a lot of different mayors. And actually we had, after his trip, we invited the China Fire Protection Association over to our country and to our facility, and they came over and they saw firsthand how we developed and built fire trucks, and surely that helped us along the way, because I got quite a few trucks all throughout China.
Oh, wow. It's fantastic.
Especially these strong arms. So, we sold quite a few strong arms, aerial devices, into China over the years, and was very successful. But Buddy was a very not only a great person, but Buddy was just a great motivator, great speaker. So we got to be friends over the years, and served on the bank boards together, and started with him in the startup of the business bank of Baton Rouge with Buddy, and just a tremendous guy. We always stayed close over the years, and just a very dynamic person.
Yeah, so. Fantastic guy. 9/11 was a monumental event. It seems to have been transformational for your business in how you responded to it in particular. Walk us through what that was like, and to the point of the Spirit of Louisiana donation to the NY.
Yeah, I mean, that was really a great success, believe it or not. Just still people all around the world talk about that today. I mean, I can be up in New York City and have a Ferrara shirt on, and people walking down the street say, yeah, I remember the fire truck, and y'all delivered to New York City. But how that came about, Governor Foster was governor at the time, and surely after September 11th, all of us felt the need to do something to help the people of New York City, and
in which hundreds of firefighters perished in the collapse of the Twin Towers.
Yeah, unfortunately, 343 firemen perished in the facility, in that building, or the Twin Towers, and as people were coming out, they were going up to rescue people. But anyway, I felt like we had to do something too, and believe it or not, months before that happened, I had an opportunity to go up to New York City to meet with the fire department, and actually got to ride in one of the trucks in New York City before 9/11, and just seeing what kind of requirements they needed, and just got a concept of what their product of fire trucks were all about. Their fire trucks are, and a lot of people don't know this, are completely different than any other fire truck in the world, with all the redundant systems they have on it. Bulletproof glass in the side windows of the fire truck. The fire trucks are made out of all stainless steel cab, stainless steel body, and just an extra heavy-duty product. They have 3 braking systems on the vehicle, not only an engine brake, the brakes on the truck, and then a retarder, So back to 9/11, I had an opportunity to see what kind of product they wanted and were using every day, and so, like I said, felt the need to do something. So I got a call one day from the governor's office saying, hey, can you come over and we'll talk about building a fire truck, because days before there was a gentleman by the name of Ron Goldman out of Algiers that called into the governor's talk show, which was held on Thursday. Every Thursday, Governor Foster would have a radio talk show, and this gentleman by the name of Ron Goldman called into the governor and said, hey, Governor, since Ferrara Fire Apparatus is located in Holden, why don't we get together and help start a campaign to donate a fire truck.
Wow.
But believe it or not, in parallel with that, I was also talking to Butch Browning. The current fire marshal, was a good friend of mine back in those days, and still is today. But so me and Butch got together, and then Leo Honeycutt, I don't know if you remember Leo Honeycutt, sure. and we had just a Hunt Downer, I don't know if you remember Hunt Downer, who was a representative at the time. So we all met at the Capitol one day, with the governor, and it was just like five of us around the table, and we said, hey, we're going to build a fire truck for the New York City Fire Department. And I said, okay. I said, I want to do it. And they said, well, why don't we try to start a campaign to raise money? I said, that's fine. And we came up with a campaign called Bucks for Trucks. And my commitment there was, I was going to build a truck regardless of,
right.
Whatever money we raised. So as the campaign went on, it just got to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Believe it or not, there were school kids, all around the state giving pennies and nickels. And so the goal was only to raise, a couple $100,000. So we ended up raising $1.2 million.
Oh, my goodness.
For the campaign. So fast forward, we built not only the one truck called the Spirit of Louisiana, but we actually built 3 other vehicles, support vehicles, and supplied a lot of different fire equipment to make up that 1.2 plus a lot of the money that we donated. And, our employees donated their time to build the truck. And,
wow.
After the truck was finished or during the process, the governor came out and we would have, press conferences, and we would, go on Leo Honeycutt's early morning show and talk about the truck and the campaign. And it was really just a great success story, not only for us, but it was a great success story for the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, and the way that it was marketed, I mean, the story was shared with everyone. It was, you drove, the truck was driven up there, right? You passed by the Superdome, right. Then you went by the White House.
Well, as it went, though, after the truck was finished, we christened the truck at our facility, and it left our facility, and it was unveiled on Monday Night Football in the Superdome. So the governor was there, and then from the unveiling at halftime at the Superdome, it was driven straight through because we had got a call from the president and said, hey, why don't y'all stop at the White House with the truck?
Kidding.
So there was a big delegation and actually drove the truck, and police escorted through every state to the White House. And so the next day we were at the White House to unveil this gift from Louisiana to the citizens of New York. So we had a great big delegation following the truck on buses and everything. So a lot of people got to go to the White House with us. So it was unveiled. It was breaking news on every major channel, unveiling the truck with the governor there, myself, Ron Goldman, Butch was there. Everybody was there who actually started the campaign. And then after the press conference at the White House, then we drove the truck to Times Square, where it was unveiled on Matt Lauer and Katie Kirk on the Today Show. So it was so Governor Pataki was there to accept the truck on behalf of the citizens of New York City, along with the mayor. And it was supposed to be like a 3-minute cut-in segment because the truck was sitting on the plaza floor in Rockefeller Center. Ended up being like a 30-minute presentation on national news, from what these people from Louisiana did for the people of New York City.
God, what a proud moment for your company, but for the state of Louisiana. I mean, it just gives me chills hearing you recount that, and I can remember how great it felt to be Louisiana, being a part of Louisiana, doing it. But there's an interesting thing that happened kind of in return for that I'd like to pick up on the other side of this commercial break, and we will be right back. We would like to thank Modus for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. Who is Modus? Modus is a facility services company that works in the e-commerce fulfillment industry across the United States. What do? They like to say they take it from the conveyor to the dock door. Well, what does that mean? It means that they're building the pick stations with the cable management. They're installing guardrails and bollards. They're putting down floor marking. They're putting up aerial signage. These guys build fencing systems, shelving systems, and racking systems. They also do rack recovery for when there's rack failures. They also install dock levelers and dock doors. Modus also installs ASRS systems, which is automated storage and retrieval systems, as well as other robotics projects. They've worked for the largest e-commerce retailers in the world, and they can work for you. If you need to find Modus, you can reach them online at modusmoves.com. And we are back with Chris Ferrara with U.S. Fire Pump. Chris, it was interesting to learn that there was this reciprocal event that happened that was around the time of Katrina from the New York
Fire Department. Right, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, in 2005, the major hurricane hit the Gulf Coast, and especially the city of New Orleans, was kind of devastated. Was devastated with flooding, and a lot of buildings was impacted. And when you have hurricanes, you always need additional response personnel to come in because there's so many things that's going on. And surely a lot of the firemen lost their houses or had home damage. And so typically, other fire departments would come in and help. So when that was going on, me and Bush got together, Bush Browning, and actually made a call to the city of New York. And they said, well, shoot, we were already on our way, So it was pretty rewarding to see them so aggressive and actually taking it upon themselves to head towards New Orleans to actually come help us in time of need.
Hundreds of firefighters.
Driving nonstop from New York City. But not only were they driving, but they were actually, the Spirit of Louisiana was leading the convoy from New York City to the city of New Orleans.
So the truck that you had built that had been donated is now coming back 4 or 5 years later.
Right. It served the purpose of New York City. They used the heck out of it. It ran major incidents in the city, and they used it until they got some other fire trucks in. And they said, well, shoot, we'll just bring the Spirit of Louisiana back to Louisiana.
How about that?
Talking to those folks, they said, me and Bush said, well, we'll just meet you in Mississippi to show you the way in to the city of New Orleans. So when we got to the Mississippi-Louisiana line to meet them, to escort them in, the Spirit of Louisiana was leading the pack, along with about 20 other support vehicles.
Oh, my goodness.
And at that time, it was probably 60 or 70 firemen in the convoy of the New York City Fire Department firemen to come help, for the Katrina incident. And it was very emotional to see, the Spirit of Louisiana coming back to Louisiana and serving its purpose to run calls in the city of New Orleans. But those guys are very special, and all firemen are special. But New York City firemen, we have such a close relationship with, and so we set them up in the old Holy Cross building in Algiers. So that was their base compound. So they were just eager to go. I mean, they hit the ground running and making fire calls in the city and doing whatever it takes. It was like their own compound that they had everybody there, from procurement to engineers to firemen. They had their own talented people, water rescue vehicles. They were just coming very prepared. They had their own equipment, water, just everything. So after we got them set up there, I came back the next day and to check on them, make sure everything was going, because we had our own command post going on at our facility that we were acquiring mobile homes, pickup trucks, just everything for the city of New Orleans. And we turned our facility into kind of like a command post. So we had a lot of different agencies there, and we were helping the different agencies, and we were procuring a lot of stuff. And so I went back the next day and it was checking on them, and I drove up and I see one of the New York City firemen actually, on the roof of the Holy Cross building, repairing the roof. They had firemen out there cutting the grass. I was just really just blown away of their ability to actually do whatever it takes to make it happen.
That's amazing. Great story. So all the while, post Katrina, ultimately things get back together. For our fire apparatus continues to grow. I read at one point you guys had grown your facility from the initial 110,000 to ultimately around 300,000 square feet.
Right. We were always putting new additions on, it seemed like once a month, and hiring new personnel and new talent. And we were very successful with that. And we just built such a great product, and like I said earlier, with the innovations that we came up with. And we were always leading the pack, so to speak, of innovation.
So years past, continued innovation all the way through, as you just mentioned. But you get to a point in 2017, and there's a liquidity event. Walk us through, how you're able to do that after, building your baby for so long.
Yeah, when you look at, I was there 30-something years, 35, 36 years, and put a lot of sweat and tears and hard work into that facility, and had an opportunity where a publicly traded company came in that had to have the business. And as you can appreciate, when you get older in life, you just, look at things a little different. So it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up, so... but on the other hand, I can't stay still. I got to be doing something.
And you did with the U.S. fire pump, right?
Correct. Right.
Which is where we started. So look, Chris, as we wrap up, I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but the thing that just rings true is, as you just mentioned about the innovation, and it's been from day one.
Right.
And I was just, that's not really something that you turn on and off as a entrepreneur and a business owner. It seems like that's just programmed in your DNA. I was just curious your thoughts about that and how important that is to your success.
No, it's very important, and people ask me that, quite often. How can you be so successful? I guess, some of the other things in life, I guess, especially in business and being an entrepreneur, first thing is, I don't take no for an answer. There's always a way around a no situation, good or bad. If I would have had looked back in time and all the banks at that particular time in the early days saying, no, your plan's not going to work. No, you're not going to be successful. I would have never succeeded in business and would have quit many years ago. But what I tell everybody that there's, never give up, always go forward, and always find ways to, get around a no situation. In addition to that, a lot of success stories of my businesses too. You always have to have the right people at your facilities, and so you have to surround yourself with just great people and handpick those people. But in addition to that, I'm a firm believer of leading by example. When I would walk the floor at Ferrara fire apparatus, I knew everybody. I knew everybody by the first name, and I would treat everybody with surely respect. But whether it was a janitor or a welder or whatever, I always had the passion to treat them with respect, and we just had such a great group, and still have a great group today, that people will go the extra mile if you treat them right and do the right things, and that's been my success. But leading by example is a big passion of mine, and they know I can still weld today, believe it or not, and I still get out there on these big fires and go to these big fires myself, and that means a lot to people.
Absolutely.
You have to lead by example. So
when you look back across your long, productive, extremely successful career, what are the things that you're most proud of? Oh,
just, first of all, have a great family support. that's been there for me. In addition to that, building a business that is known worldwide, and not only that, just hopefully have just a great reputation out there. And I'm also a firm believer of people buy from people. This is a people business. Buddy Romer used to talk about that all the time, and I'm a firm believer that, people have that relationships that, that you can trust in people, and you got to do what you say you're going to do and stand behind your product. And we did so many things along the way that set us apart. For instance, in building fire trucks, I actually bought two 18-wheelers with rollback chassis, and if our product would fail or mechanically something would happen, if we couldn't fix it on the spot, I would come pick it up at no charge at my expense, fix it and bring it back. So, it was just a little things like that. We started a 24-hour hotline where somebody could call into our facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to talk about technical problems, technical issues. So it was just, different ideas and different ways that made us very successful along the way.
So you started your career 40 plus years ago, and when you look back at your 20-year-old self and I think of
how young I was young then,
who you were then,
Right.
and like thinking about it, what advice would you give to a young 20-year-old now as it relates to the entrepreneurial journey?
Well, again, like I said earlier, I would, first of all, it doesn't come easy. Today, some people may think they need it now, they want it now, but this has been a lot of hard work. It hadn't been easy. It's been a long, long road. However, it's been a lot of hard work to get where I'm at today. And again, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day sometimes, and that's what it takes to build a great business. You're not going to stay home and go to events or go vacations. And I missed many of birthday parties and gatherings that, I was out somewhere or calling on customers or at trade shows. So, I did what I had to do to make this business work, and it just takes a lot of work.
Yeah. I was at a gas station one time. I was going out to the Circuit of the Americas track. I have a little track car, had my RV, and I'm pulling this trailer with my track car on it. And this 16 or 17-year-old kid comes running across the parking lot. He's got the hugest smile on his face, and he's just sprinting. About 50 feet away, he starts yelling, "What do you do for a living?" And he was just like, "I don't know what you do, but whatever you do, I want to do something like it so I can have this one day."
Right,
kind
right.
of mentality.
I've heard many stories like that before, so.
And so he comes up to me, and he just keeps saying, "What do you do for?" And I said, "You know what? I work my butt off."
Right.
And that's all you got to do.
Right.
If you just start now and you just start working your butt off, you can have whatever you want.
But also another thing is, knowledge is power. If you have a lot of instinct and if you have yourself, knowledge of or learn or teach yourself, and I know it's hard to do, but in today's world, knowledge is just really a tremendous amount of power that you can gain. So,
Chris, I appreciate you sharing your stories and your wisdom. Your journey is just phenomenal. I am utterly fascinated by what you've been able to accomplish, and not only in Ferrara fire apparatus, but now U.S. Pump, and that's just next level stuff. So I am greatly honored that you came and shared your story with us, and thank you so much, sir.
Great. Glad to be here. Nice to meet you, Andrew.
You guys know I love all types of entrepreneurs, but there's something about the manufacturing business that I find particularly appealing. And Chris's story is just fascinating. The fact that he got his business to the point where he was custom fabricating his own chassis for his trucks And what that must take to get approval at the federal level is just hard to comprehend. But this is a guy that doesn't take no for an answer, and he got it done. I loved how brilliant Chris is, how approachable he is. I loved his lead by example business philosophy, the fact that he knows everyone's name as he walks the floor. But, that was just the first part of his journey. He sold Ferrara Fire and started U.S. Fire Pump, and the fact that he has the largest fleet of response equipment anywhere in the world is just fascinating. And he is fighting fires all over the globe. So we love sharing Chris's stories. We appreciate him coming in. We appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur Podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.